situation either. But the deferment to me seems like nothing's gonna change with you folks on that road until you decide you want to hook up. You feel it's in your best interest to pay that fee and you want to hook up because you no longer want to deal with septic systems. You no longer want to figure out how you're going to get water coming out there. If there's a big water issue, you know, it's pretty expensive running them water lines in. And you're not getting the same type of water. You probably are paying extra to make sure your water is more usable.
Got real good water. We don't have a softener or anything. But
Yeah, when I think back to about 35 years ago when the flood happened, all those wells were contaminated.
mine isn't contaminated.
It was back then though.
I don't think it
Didn't exist. Okay. Comment? I think, in my own mind here, and haven't talked with my colleagues here yet on this, but I think we're at a point that it would do us a lot of good to get together with the Roach's company here, just the community. And maybe if some of you folks want to sit in on it or something, it would do us all a lot of good.
From the past workings I've dealt with the Roaches, they're willing to talk. They have at times catered to our needs and did pretty well. It's not like they're totally greedy people. And they've done a lot of good for Little Falls. They've put up some really nice units. I don't see their units at this point, you know, as far as the rentals and everything, that they're problem areas in town. You know, there's other areas I wish would be as nice as Roach's facilities. We're going to have some major expenses coming up here on the north end of town when some of these properties, these non-compliant lots, homes are starting to get pretty bad, and we can't allow new houses to come up, but then we're discussing small homes. Maybe that's an option, but that's something the community would have to really want. But there's all these issues all the time. Right now, what's before us is what works out better for that area, the planning commission can't recommend as far as what happens to that road. Is the city council willing to tear up a new road and stick in a whole lot of services down there that probably won't be used for quite a while, because it doesn't sound like anybody's in a hurry to hook up from your end, which would open up to a development of somebody who actually bought some property and wants to do something. They own it. Right now, they could put in all them units, them single-family units. It's going to lay down just as much of a burden down that street, even if they could somehow sub in somewhere else. But it's like Greg was saying, the smartest thing to do if the city's going to go and do anything right now is run that service down there and then take care of it. And then when everyone's willing, someday when you sell your property off, somebody might want to even bust your property up and put up more homes in that region, because they could possibly, you know. But that's probably down the road quite a ways. I know you probably feel more comfortable, like Steve, you're saying, just how strong is this PUD controlling what happens out there? And then Greg said it'd have to come before the council again, and or the planning commission and the council, what are they going to feel if this happens 20 years down the road? Are they going to want more homes in there? Maybe 20 years down the road, across the street where you guys are, is going to be where the major problem is, because people buy that property and decide they want to make some money and stick in some more homes in there. We don't know that. We can make a judgment of what's before us right now. The road and all of that, the council has to decide. I haven't talked to one council member that's pro or con against this thing, because they don't have all the facts. That's why it's sitting in front of us right now.
The way the information comes out on this is, there's got to be a better way. I mean, you get a little bit here, a little bit there, then all of a sudden this was thrown up in there. Then now we get deferrals. You know, there's gotta be a better way to know that everybody knows what's going on from the beginning on how this works, how the PUD over R1C and R1 and, you know, how that all works. You know, that's all, you know, everybody gets worked up and then we let out a little bit of the information on how this is supposed to work. It just seems that there should be a better way so that it doesn't have to happen like this.
I kind of agree with what Robin was saying. You get these guys, the Roaches, together with you, maybe you want to bring in somebody from the council, sit down and do it the old way and just talk it out. You'll probably come up with a better plan from that point. What the council hears the next time might be totally different than what it heard this last week. Things change. You know, I've learned by being on this council, you never, just because it's brought out once and that's the way you heard it, that it's going to stay there. Things generally change when there is discussions as we go. So,
When it's all, you gotta have all the parties there.
That's right. And,
Is there truth that it's a double duplex home doesn't affect their decrease of their properties as much as a fourplex? Isn't that what I heard you say? That a fourplex would devalue your properties more than if it were duplexes being built? Or did I
There's a lot
misinterpret?
of
I didn't
stipulations.
say
I mean,
that.
there's a
Oh,
lot
I
of
misheard
variables.
that.
That was the first public hearing you heard from the Gulf deals that one of the guys thought it was gonna devalue his property, which is a
Oh.
fourplex versus a twin home.
And the
I said that duplexes fit in with what's constructed out there
Oh,
closer
okay.
than what fourplexes would be.
Yeah, okay, I misunderstood.
So you could have 16
Twin homes.
duplexes, or you could have 8 fourplexes. You're gonna have the same amount of units, just how you're gonna lay them out. Do you want 16 properties or do you want 8 properties?
It'd be nice if those were rent-to-own properties. There's people that were
that's up to
renting.
them.
I think
You
you
gotta
should
remember,
consider that,
it's gotta be
seriously.
what the market bears. If they aren't
No, no.
sellable, they tried that across the street here and it didn't go very well.
You know,
Yeah, but if you had rent-to-own, you would probably get some good people that would want to stay longer and they take pride in ownership. That would change the whole perception of this development. And why not offer that in every city?
Most of our tenants are going the other way, and they've already owned for a long time, and they want to no longer own. They want us to mow the lawn or shovel the snow.
Oh, they must
and
fix the
maintain
roof.
properties.
Are they
That's
senior
right.
folks then?
By far, most
Oh.
of our tenants are, yeah.
Oh, well, I just know there's no rent-to-own homes here. And with so many people losing their home, it just seems like the kind thing to do.
There's
And
lots
common sense.
of, right now you can buy about, I know there's at least 10 houses in Little Falls you could get into for less than $500 a month.
Rent to own.
Rent-to-own, no.
Yeah, buy, I guess.
Right.
Rent to own is buying, yes. Drive around Little Falls tomorrow and look at those signs that say down payment of $1,000, $538 a month, $585 a month. That's your house payment.
Right, but that's a straight-out purchase, and a lot of people who
That's
lost
the
their
same,
homes.
it's the same thing as rent to own.
Well, but to qualify might be different. People that are renting don't have to show a good credit track history and a big down payment and all that.
here's one thing, and you're probably on my side on this one. Less controls people have over the ownership of their property, the better. You know, right now, they have a right to put in duplexes. They
Right.
bought that property, and there's gonna be 32 units in there. No matter what we can't deny them that. They own that property and they could do whatever they want. We can't put on stipulations that they're just rentals or rent to own.
Right,
or-
no, I know you can't. I'm
So-
just
and I don't
using this
want to.
opportunity to make a
should-
suggestion to one
Yeah.
of the major persons that has rental property. I just would like to see that. Just,
Someday, maybe the Roaches, they just out of the goodness of their hearts, they put up a whole lot of homes and say, rent to own, you know, and they might
well,
do
they'd
it.
make a profit nonetheless,
Yeah, it's up
but
to
we'd
them.
have more homeowners taking pride in their property. Maybe not that particular
We've
development.
taken it under advisement.
There's nothing like that. You know, even you guys should consider what I suggested of small homes. Because we should have small homes available for people who want to downsize.
I would love it if we could have a couple of the council people that represent us out there. I know that several of the folks that live along DesRosier could sit down and maybe get an hour with Greg and Terry, because I think that's probably how we would, if we could have done it to start with, we wouldn't have had to go through this. But if we could do something like that, maybe we could come up with something that at least would be a negotiated deal that everybody's dissatisfied or not happy.
And you know, that's a good possibility, just a couple council members, otherwise
This one behind
it's
you.
an open meeting, I mean, open meeting laws. Two people can
And
probably
Lizzie's
go
right
and it's
there.
no big deal. It's like having a town home meeting, you know, just getting together. If you guys want to set that up and you want a couple council members there, invite them over, there's no problem with that. And then when we have the public hearing, which is down the road here,
Likely to be next month.
probably a month away.
I don't know, stuff.
In the meantime, maybe a lot of things can be resolved, because like this is an informative thing for, this is probably the first time you've heard about this issue here, so I think they're informed now,
Sure.
a little more than they were.
A lot more.
More than you want to know.
And you can use this room.
So it's been a good
as
meeting.
Policy now.
Yeah, Brad.
To develop, so anybody can use it.
Yeah.
You just have to reserve it.
R1C, 8.8 acres, that's
Do it 3 days
24, not
in advance.
32 for
Get a phone,
16,000 square
it's
feet though. I keep hearing 32, but unless I did math wrong, it would be 24 units, not 32.
Is it 24?
24 lots,
24 lots.
but you can have a twin home on each lot.
So you could have 2 units per lot.
That's even worse.
2 units on each lot.
But you have to have stormwater retention, you've got roads.
And that's why.
That's why you backed it down.
To the
Yeah, that's, I
18
understand.
Yeah.
14 to 18 something, without
But you-
laying something out, that's
They're about equivalent,
true.
the two options that
Similar
are.
density.
This actually just lets us lay it out a lot more. It pulls them away from DesRosier. We don't have 6, 7 lots all dumping out. We've got the collector, the internal collector driveways. The reason we're doing this is because we realize everybody's argument, and you know, nobody wants anything across from their house. I understand totally. But this really is the cleanest, least intrusive way for us to put that number of units on that site.
And the other thing that goes, goes with that is the PUD and the changes that can go along with that. It's certainly easier to make changes than if it was not rezoned and you ended up doing the duplexes, because then you know what you have and that is what fits in there and there isn't more. You can add to the PUD, but it has to,
Very
I know there's a process to
It's
it, but it can be done.
There's no
But there's
physical
no
room.
room to put another building, really. I mean, this is it. We're in and done. We can't tweak another one.
Peanut Tree Pond's gonna be most of that open area. So there will be no room for any more, and the rest of it's surrounded by pine trees, there's 4,000 pine trees on that
We
site.
have no interest in any more buildings. We're gonna do this. It'll take about 9 months, start to finish. We'll be in and out, and it's an up and running project like our other ones in town.
Steve, the PUD is gonna give the rest of the residents a little bit more protection in terms of what is gonna be built out there. Say, for instance, the city council decides to change the lot size requirements of an R1C, then automatically, anybody that's in an R1C would fall underneath those same requirements. If it's up or down, they'd be able to change that the way that they see fit. So if they did away with the R1C and went from 16,000 to 11,000, automatically this lot would then be able to bear more. They wouldn't have to come back to the council for it. But with the PUD overlay, it stipulates it can only be 8 fourplexes or 32 units on it. Regardless of what happens with the R1C, it stipulates this is all that's going to be done.
Did you do a layout of the R1C duplex?
Several options of it, but the big point behind that is this is gonna be a rental property owned by one sole family And we want one single lot that we're in control of, not 16 or 17 different lots.
Yeah. If we could sit down and, I mean, this could take longer than you guys want to spend.
Yeah,
Sitting down next week. Just let me know.
yeah.
In a fourplex like that, there's gotta be sprinkler system too. Fourplex, you don't have to. Oh, you do now, okay.
With the duplex, okay. January 31st.
Oh, no matter what.
Okay, set that up if you like.
We would love to
Yeah.
be part of an informative meeting.
We're up for
Pardon
a
me?
meeting.
We would love to be part of an informative
Okay.
meeting with
Great,
neighbors.
great.
If you want me to
Thanks,
come,
Dan.
I will talk to you guys.
How many council people can be there?
I would recommend 2. If it looks like anything more, then it turns into open.
You can have 3, because you can have 5 before it's
Yeah,
4. You can have
it just
4,
doesn't look
then you
as
can
good.
have
3, but then it's getting.
You don't want
close to
4,
the end, so
3
you
would be
don't want
fine.
All right,
So I know you guys
we'll make some
got 3 of you
arrangements.
guys out there
Active.
ready. And
If you bring some food, it'd be a little better.
Then we'll have 8 of them.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, folks.
Okay, we're almost running out of time here.
Yes.
Do you feel you want to talk about the future to Minnesota DOT improvements, or?
Yep, I'll be quick on that.
Okay, go for
Okay,
it.
I'm basically tonight, I'm looking for input from the board here. MnDOT is going to be coming through and doing an overlay on Trunk Highway 27. And so, generally speaking, an overlay is going to last anywhere between 10, 15 years. So now is really our opportunity, if we want to do anything along 27, to take advantage of that. We'll also be looking at doing something on First Street North and South at some point in time here, because that utility along there is quite old as well. So some of the items that I've kind of listed up here are the things that I see that are issues with Trunk Highway 27. If there's any other issues that you see, let me know that we can take a look at. Because I'd like to start looking at some options on what we can do along 27 to try to improve some of those things. I know parking is one of the biggest issues along there. Whether it's parallel parking or whether it's angled parking brings its own set of challenges because you have to have a backup lane essentially, which obviously takes away from some traffic areas and through. So parking is one thing that I'd like to start looking at. In that, you might have to look at a truck route as well to reduce some of the traffic along 27 so that you can get your angled parking depending on how much of a priority you put on parking. Also, we're looking at the pedestrian access route and light pole conflicts. Right now, the way it sits with our light poles, some areas don't have the full 4-foot pedestrian access route. So we're going to have to look at, when MnDOT comes through with their project, looking at widening that so we have the correct width so that people with wheelchairs and such can get passing through there. And all of these, we kind of have pictures I should run through these here. This is just looking at the parking. You can see on the north side up there by Pete and Joy's. Over here, obviously you've seen the parking there. Truck route, possibly, I know there's been discussion for a number of years, First Avenue Southeast and First Avenue Northeast. I haven't really put layouts on that. I don't know necessarily what your feelings are for truck routes. I don't know if truck routes are going to be the full answer to it. Roughly 13,000 vehicles per day go through on Trunk Highway 27. Because of that, with the angled parking, you have to have a 14-foot wide backup lane, which obviously takes up one of your driving lanes. By creating a truck route, I don't think you're going to reduce the number of vehicles along there to reduce that significantly to be able to get two-way traffic through there. So does it mean we have one-way traffic on Broadway for a stretch and have one-way traffic on either First Avenue Northeast or First Avenue Southeast? Those are all some options that we've got to start looking at.
The state will let us put one-way traffic on 27?
I don't know. I haven't looked into that yet. So
Here's a couple other things coming up here. I know that bridge is scheduled,
2022.
and there's also discussion about running more trains through town,
Yep.
which would change that whole layout right there.
Right down there.
Yeah.
There's a number of things that,
So,
there's a number of factors that come into play. You can see the light poles right there. We've got a step coming around here. The north side is the same way. We've got to look at how all of that works. So that may mean that we have to bump the curb and gutter in a little bit more so that we can continue to provide 4 feet of access in through there.
and our sidewalks are too narrow the way it is. We'd be taking away more.
No, we'd be moving it in, so into the street, so we'd be gaining more.
Gaining sidewalk.
Okay, and then there was a discussion about bump outs maybe,
We're
sort of,
getting there, yep.
okay.
Again, this is looking at the light bulb conflicts, right in through here. We've got a building, we've got the light right there. Unfortunately, we can't really move either one of them. The light is there because of the spacing of the poles. Buildings are obviously there already. So again, there's things that we have to look at. But as you can see, we've got a pretty wide parking lane here. We might be able to do something with that. Parklets is something that someone, I think Chris actually brought that up. If the property owner wants, they may be able to do something such as this. You can also have that at parallel parking. One thing I like about it is it's temporary. So if for whatever reason the business owner wants to do something like that, have a little bit of extra room, if it doesn't work out for them, it's on the skid, you can take it and get it out. Or if it's causing problems for the adjacent owners, you can get it out of there. So that may be something that we look at as well along that 27 corridor. Bike lane, we already have a bike lane on 1st Street Northeast and Southeast. We're obviously going to have to extend that west over the bridge once the MRT comes through. So we're going to have to look at how does that bike lane in conjunction with the parking on there, as well as the traffic, how does that all work together. One of the most important things that I see there is the deteriorating infrastructure. It was installed anywhere between 1916 and 1922. It's approaching 100 years old. You can see those 2 pipes. I don't know if you can see that real well. This one here, you've got holes all over the place. This one's got holes in there. The bottom one was taken out of 1st Street Northwest. The top one was taken out of right on on Broadway. What we've noticed is the galvanized piping is starting to deteriorate. We're starting to get a lot of that hitting in through there. We've got clay water services, or sewer main, and ductile iron, or cast iron water main, which has a tendency to break. So that's going to be one of the most important things that I see, if nothing else, is to replace that infrastructure. But if we're digging that up, we might want to look at what other amenities are there. Another thing that we can look at is landscaping. This is what Brainerd did, 2007, I believe. You can see in here, they did their bump outs, they got angled parking, they got plantings on the corners. The one thing that this particular stretch had in favor that we don't is the traffic volume. This is just local traffic. Business 371 is off to the side over here. This is just local traffic, so they didn't have to worry about, the truck traffic or the backup lane. And the 14 feet that we have to have clear space in order for someone to back out and not back into traffic. So I like, the general concept that they have here. It's just a matter of how do we incorporate that into something that we can use downtown that's going to be safe and user-friendly. Again, just another picture of what Brainerd did. You can see the bump outs here. They ended up doing pavers as well as some planters on the corner. It looks very nice, but obviously with pavers and such, there's added expense. So at some point, once I get some options pulled together, it'd be nice to sit down with the business owners downtown, just to kind of have a public informational meeting on what they would like to see down there, because there's obviously going to be a cost associated with it, and likely the council is going to say the downtown businesses are going to have to participate in the payment of that cost of it, because to spread that out amongst the rest of the community just isn't fair if that benefits the downtown, obviously. I think it's the last but not least, the railroad. There's obviously a number of trains coming through there. I believe in 2015, BNSF is looking at adding another rail along that stretch. So we're gonna have, likely to see more cars coming through there in terms of rail traffic. So that's gonna be a challenge with both the bike route, even the vehicles. I know there's been talk in the past about a bridge. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the answer because you have to have 22 feet clearance between the tracks and the bridge. So
Our bridge would be, way up here, and by the time it came back down, you'd have to buy out all of these
businesses, that's not necessarily feasible and cost effective to be able to do that. So to work around what's happening with BNSF and what's going to be happening with us, that's going to be a challenge.
There's gonna be other issues because of Dakota. A lot of fighting going on right now about the danger of spills and stuff, and this is away from waterways. This is running along the Mississippi, so,
Over the Mississippi.
I mean, if we had a disaster here, it's gonna be a disaster.
Depending on the location, yes, it could be. Obviously, and I've talked with Mike in regards to this, but obviously one of the first things that we're going to have to do, obviously, contain the area, get people away from it, but then make sure that the spill doesn't get into the Mississippi. That's going to have to be a coordination that we have with Minnesota Power. They operate that dam and the Niagara plant, so whether or not they'll be allowed to basically close those gates as well as the electric plant. We'll have to be working closely with them.
Maybe some ditch system to keep it away from the river. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Pretty much ditch road though between the river and the tracks.
No, it's pretty straight down.
Pretty much.
Is
And
the
river-
train trestle double track?
No, the south one, no, it's like, no.
How can they get another track in there then? What are they gonna do about getting the trains over the train trestle? Are they gonna build a new trestle?
There'll still be one track.
There'll be trains backed up on both sides of the trestle.
Waiting?
Just coming through town.
You'll never be able to get across town,
It's
Harvey.
gonna be a switch station like
Clearwater.
Staples. It's gonna be a complete disaster.
If we thought we had it tough now, things will change.
It's gonna be slow moving because that trestle is what, 25 mile an hour, 20 mile an hour is all the
I think
fastest.
it's
With the
25.
curve on there, that's all the fastest they can go on that.
I think it's 25.
There are communities along the river starting to get together to go to the governor and start dealing with some of this, not just let the railroad have their way. I think it'd be advisable if we stay on top of this and because we'll be impacted just as much as any of the other ones.
So that's really all that I had in regards to problems or improvement areas along 27. Are there any of them that the board sees that I may have forgotten before we start looking at options there?
When is that supposed to start?
The railroad stuff?
No, just the overlay, I guess. What's the plan for?
MnDOT is looking at doing pedestrian ramp improvements this year and next year, and then I believe it's 2019, I think, is when they said they were going to do the overlay. Now that could get shifted in
On
3
money
years,
and
yeah,
everything
depending
else.
on money.
And I'm assuming is the overlay going from where, Highway 10?
It's going all the way through.
So it'll be all the way through town.
You'd think they'd want to do the bridge at the same time, and otherwise we're just gonna have a couple of years driving around town.
It all comes down to money. Well, the overlay, you can still have traffic on an overlay. You know, because they'll mill out 2 inches, you'll just drive on the rough stuff. And then they'll put the blacktop down, where there's a piece of hollow on it, and then you just move over. But if we dig up our utilities, then you're gonna be driving around town.
So if they put in 3 tracks, we have to pay more to go across.
Another crossing?
No.
Okay.
No.
Crossing fee. Is there any alternative? I mean, I know you said a bridge isn't feasible. Is there, I mean, you guys
Rerouting
know
the
what it's
tracks,
like.
but they
It's
are-
worse than downtown Minneapolis sometimes trying to go across there.
It's almost better
I don't
to
know.
get across before town somewhere, you know. and then-
Move the tracks on the east side, put them out by 18th Street would be the
Yeah, but of course the railroad isn't gonna jump at that because that's millions and millions.
Oh, what did they tell us before?
Well, they're gonna replace that bridge anyway, that would be the time to look at, but then there's more involved, yeah. Anyway,
Pretty.
So with that, is there any other options that you want me to look at, or any?
you have the
any-
bike trail in there,
You
you've been
bet.
discussing it.
Any one of them that's kind of a priority, so that we can kind of start looking at,
I think
Putting
the
some options.
biggest priority is gonna be infrastructure. If we don't have water and sewer, the rest of it really don't mean much.
yeah,
What's the odds of not having parking on 27? Or just on one side?
if we.
Or center lane parking?
It's really, if the council decides not to have, parking, that's all you'd have to make a motion second, pass the resolution. But I think you'd have a lot of problems with the business owners.
Which business do you take the parking away from?
So.
There's
that's
not
why I
enough
was-
parking the way it is.
That's why I was looking at diagonal parking. Now, the problem with diagonal parking is you potentially take away one side of the parking on one side of the street because you've got that backup lane that you have to get into. So I haven't ran all of it all the way through to see if it's an increase or decrease, overall with the number of spaces. But ultimately, the goal would be to increase the number of spaces downtown because there's always cars parked on.
Well, figure it out.
Okay, I'll throw some options together.
As far as, is diagonal parking on one side of the street versus the other? You can get more cars if you diagonal park all on one side and just have,
I don't think you'd be able to have diagonal on one, parallel on the other. Because you have to take out 20 feet for diagonal parking, which is gonna get you. Which is probably gonna get you to about here. Because this is, I don't know, this is generally 12 feet. So that's gonna get you up into here. Then you have to have 14 feet for the backup lane. So you really just have this over here as far as the driving surface area at that point. So you may have two-way traffic right there, but if you put a bike lane in there, you might have to get rid of that and just have one way. I don't know, we'd have to look. There's a lot of room, but it doesn't look like it's enough.
right, yeah, it don't take much to, especially you got vehicles that are 22 feet long now that are,
It's the number of vehicles going through town that really causes the problem. If we didn't have the 13,000 vehicles, we could probably get something like Brainerd has in terms of diagonal parking right there, back out.
You're backing into the traffic.
You're backing into the traffic lane.
You're talking about probably 500 cars a day that are not even.
Not even.
Because those are all side streets.
Those are all side
Yeah.
streets. We're looking at our main street downtown. It's tough.
The one and only, yeah.
If you guys are gonna consider that angle back in parking, that guy that came last summer that I filmed that whole thing, I can find my film of that, and you guys can watch that at some point. It was very interesting. They have studies that shown that it's safer to back into a parallel parking
True.
than to go in forward and then back out.
True. That's true.
I didn't know that
there's
till
room for parallel parking, diagonal parking.
Now with two-way traffic, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I'll put together some options and I'll present forward.
When you ask which is a priority, you know which ones are. Go for it,
Yeah.
because you're the expert.
But like I said, I would think infrastructure would be something that we have no choice. That's one of those
Yeah.
things that either we fix it or we fix it all together or one piece at a time.
True. I mean, I think in terms of, is it parking or is it landscaping type of thing?
Oh, yeah.
In terms of priority that way. The surface improvements that everybody sees would be the question that I have there, so. But I'll put together some options and bring it forward to you guys. Hopefully get that started.
Do we want to tackle one more here?
Yes.
Okay. Storage POD regulations.
This will be the most exciting thing you do.
Is this yours? Okay.
Well, recently I've gotten a few calls wondering if people can put these storage pods, so like these things that go on the back of the train.
Containers?
Containers, basically. And put them on their property for varying lengths of time. And the ordinance is not real clear as to how we're supposed to do them. Are they structures like any storage building that they just require setbacks and permits and say go ahead? Are they something that should be temporary and only allowed for a certain amount of time? Neighbors don't like them when they're there, that kind of thing. So we don't have to decide any of that tonight, but I guess I wanted to bring it up and maybe get initial thoughts, or at least just put it in your head for thinking about next month or something.
This discussion has come up before, and we have certain regulations for garages and buildings like that, and this didn't fall in the requirements that are in place for that, as some of these other buildings I've seen in town where they're just like an awning, basically.
But now there's an ordinance against those.
There is an ordinance, I've seen a couple of them, I'm sure you know where they are and you're dealing with them, but them things are in place because we have never changed that law. We're stuck with the one that's in place. I mean, this would be something that would probably have to be requested and go before this board, and then probably get a public hearing on it or something. And
I think it's an ordinance change. I've helped some other communities with ordinances that address these, and usually they end up allowing them, but it's for a limited period of time.
Yeah.
Moving type thing.
Yeah.
I know there's one in my neighborhood right now, that people are moving out of their house, so it's parked on the street, and they're loading it up and then hopefully haul it away.
If they're there for a week, but when they sit there for 6 months
Yeah.
or a year or whatever, they're throwing it back there, they're using them.
Like dumpsters, they're not attractive.
No.
Could you
What's
look and
less
see what other
attractive
cities
is
are?
all the trash laying on the ground.
Yeah, I've done some of that
That's
already,
true.
but yeah, I guess,
It's been a dumpster for a while.
For a while, yeah, absolutely.
Possibilities out there.
yeah, I think there's kind of, there's, like you say, there's no times it's there for a few days or maybe, it's gone. And I don't think too many people have trouble with that. And then like the one I helped write limits it to 90 days. We've got a request, just came up in another community that I work in, and they want to leave it there for about 2 years.
Well,
Ooh, yeah.
So I don't know.
what
how
the
to-
reason for, if that's the case,
It's a
it's a storage shed, you'd have to pull a permit if it's bigger.
Anything.
What is it, 200 square feet?
Used to be,
Or no, 150, isn't it?
used to be 120, but apparently the building code just recently changed to 200.
So 10 by 20.
But the problem is they're not a shed, they're a semi-trailer, basically.
I can't really be wider than 8 feet.
Right.
So I guess just in terms of general initial thoughts from you guys, it's, you don't want to let them sit out there forever. So,
30 days would be more than enough, I'd be happy with.
Right.
If you allow them, I'll buy 3 of them, put them up.
You stack them too?
Okay, girl on
As long as it's not over 18 feet high, right?
Overtake the house.
I just, you mean, I've heard stories as to why people want them for longer periods of time. I think one last summer was they were moving out of the house, trying to sell it, and I suppose maybe trying to store some things. So there wasn't
Declutter or something.
Well, it does work well because there are storage sites that take them, and they'll let them sit there as long as you pay rent on them. So if you
Exactly.
put all your belongings into it, then you go take them there, they could sit there for years.
Wherever they're getting storage pod from, will store it if they're.
Yeah, but that's in a place where they allow them things, so.
You have many storage units, in the rental basis. There's other options. So is that something that you would like to see a draft or start talking about more than something right to a public hearing?
Well, you must have some kind of ordinance or drafts or something out there you've done in other communities that we could piggyback off of that.
See, let's start with that, and then we have to.
Bring it in and we'll review it, and then we'll go to a public hearing after that, I would think.
Sounds good. Next meeting, Monday, April 13th, 2015.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made, seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's over.